When we started Black Lives Matter, we didn't really know where we wanted to take this drawing. A lot of people might say, or maybe their first impression is going to be that we are trying to send some kind of political message here, but in actuality, how could somebody not see what was played endlessly over and over and over? Regardless of which side you find yourself on the divide, it is no secret that there have been some terrible things that have been happening and changes are due. The first idea was to do a fully fleshed out cityscape in the background, but the more that we started drawing, the more we began to understand that there's not a whole lot of time, and having to condense 6.5 hours, almost 7 hours into a 10-minute video was looking more and more remote the more that we added, so we ended up just cutting it short where we have it at now. The first 3 steps are pretty standard. The main focus is going to be what's in front of you, the foreground, the main character. Now the folds on the jacket, they can be done if you take a picture of somebody who's wearing a hoodie or like a loose sweater, and you can generalize where the folds began and where they end. We've taken a lot of artistic liberty and have increased some of the folds for dramatic effect. The first character is going to be highly detailed, at least as much as the constraints of this paper and the materials we're using and it being a video is going to give us. The second character behind him will not be as detailed, but will still be dynamic. The character behind him is going to be the least detailed of the 3, and he's there more of a placeholder as well as adding balance to the composition. Because you have a lot of things happening on the right, it's diagonal, the way that your eye leads across the page. There's going to be a large sign the main character is holding, and as much heavy darks and details as the main character is going to have, you want to balance that out with some other element on the other side. So just like your regular eyes, the things that are closest to you, the characters in front, they are going to be the focus, as we said, and as you go back behind them, the focus starts to get muted into vague humanoid figures towards the back. Now, we did not set out to make any type of political statement, but as the drawing kind of continued, it sort of evolved into this idea that the movement in and of itself is not a bad movement. It's a very positive one. However, as most things tend to happen, things end up getting a little bit off course, and it became less about people who are being brutalized and became more of an anti-government sort of issue. And the more that we tuned into what was going on, the more we realized that in this crowd of protests, you have the very small percentage that are taking it over, that are hijacking this movement, that are making everything turn out the way that it has been turning out lately, inciting violence and tarnishing the memory of those who have been lost. And that is the general idea. Whenever we turn on the news, that's what we have seen. Anyways, message aside, what we have done is, instead of using a complete comic book art penciling, inking sort of setup, we are going to actually establish tones and gradients in this. Personally, what I feel is best is you need to establish your base tones. You want to start with a medium tone across the board on materials, depth of field. Basically, you have to accomplish what color accomplishes with hues using grayscale. So, finding that middle tone, it's basically somewhat of a warm gray. You hold your pencil on its side to where you're letting the tooth of the paper take the graphite away and you're not necessarily pressing down on it. From there, we used a papillon or a stump and we smeared it. Basically, the tip of the stump acts almost like an airbrush. You wanted to start doing small circles within larger circles, randomly tightening or widening the circumference in order to get balanced coverage. Either you could use an eraser that you have cut to shape, or you can buy an eraser stick, a retractable one, they sell them actually. And we are making the highlights. You can also do portraits this way as well. Establish a neutral tone and then go about making the highlights by using subtraction and taking away graphite in order to work from light to dark. After the highlights have been established, we went back over and we started doing the darkest tones within the drawing. The whole point of certain illustrations are to be dynamic. Yes, the lighting is not realistic. Yes, if the lighting was realistic, obviously we would not have so many highlights. We wouldn't even have secondary highlights or undertones or any of that stuff. We wouldn't have reflecting light from cotton or jersey fabric, obviously, but for the sake of making something very graphic and very dynamic, we are doing a lot of reflected light and things that you wouldn't normally see. Using a piece of rolled up Kleenex facial tissue, you can get these types of smoky blends, and really the more you work on it, the better it looks. But we were on a time constraint here, so a lot of what you're seeing is done hard and fast. The details, they're usually last. You want to block in as much as you could possibly get done with the main thing. And you know, we really did want to add something with the buildings on the right, but it just, to me, it seems like it's kind of done. And there is a reason why. We are not using a lot of the professional tools that most people have. It's because I want you, viewer, to understand that you don't have to have specialized tools. You don't have to have Adobe Illustrator. You don't have to have a $300 Wacom stylus tablet. You don't have to have these tools that most people would say are mainstays or would say that they can't go without. As time goes on, we continue making these videos. We will expand into using specialized tools for different applications, but right now we just want to work with the basics because that's all anyone really has. You can't expect to inspire somebody or to show actual skill if all you're doing is flashing a lot of tools that cost a lot of money. It's true. $50 Prisma set of 12 colors is going to work a hell of a lot better than a pack of 12 $4 rose art pencils. So, once again, thank you for stopping by. Hopefully you are keeping in mind not the debate of right or wrong, but the victims, the people, those suffering, the families that are left behind. Those really should be our main concern. Let everyone else argue about what they think is right, but let's pay attention to the people that have lost. And with that, thank you. Have a great day. I'll see ya.